Hello, I promised in my last vlog I was going to film a health update, and the reason I promised in that vlog was because I keep sitting down to film this video, being unable to film it, and I just get a bit overcome with emotions, and I find this kind of thing quite hard to film because obviously it's so personal. About maybe 6 or 7 months ago, I filmed a video about the health journey that I had been on, so I'm gonna rewind to the start. If you haven't seen that, then you'll have no idea what's going on in this video. About January of last year, I started to get some really bad symptoms to the point where I couldn't function in my daily life. I'd have a nap after every meal. I had excruciating stomach pains, so many other symptoms that I won't go into right now, and now it has been a year and a half when I first started looking into this, and since then I have found out that I have something called SIBO, which is small intestine bacterial overgrowth. I also had Candida in my gut, and I had large intestinal dysbiosis. I just want to start by saying I'm not a doctor, I'm not an expert, so you'll have to excuse me if I get any of the kind of terminology or whatever wrong, and this is by no means an advice video, this is just my story and my journey. So SIBO is basically when there's an excess of bacteria in your small intestine and it causes a huge range of symptoms. Some of the symptoms of small intestine bacterial overgrowth include nausea, vomiting, bloating, headaches, weight loss, malnutrition, serious fatigue to the point where like I would have to sleep after every single meal. For me, the symptoms were kind of the same as the large intestinal dysbiosis. It basically just meant there was an overgrowth of bacteria throughout my gut. So since then, to treat this, I have been on 3 courses of antibiotics called rifaximin. I've been on 5 courses of antimicrobials, and I have been to countless doctors, consultations, treatments. And the reason I'm filming this video is because so many people have sent me such kind emails and such kind comments, reaching out and saying that they were on a similar journey to me, and so many of them really touched me, and I felt like because I filmed that original video, I kind of needed to let you know where I'm at. My Candida went pretty quickly, I would say. I started treating that in August, and when I tested again for it in November, it was clear. That was the easiest hurdle to kind of jump over. The SIBO, however, has been a serious battle for me. I've been tested for SIBO 4 times now, and I'm actually next week going to have my 5th test for SIBO, and every single time the results differ. You basically get tested by drinking a sugary liquid and measuring your hydrogen and methane levels in your breath for the next 3 hours. After my course of rifaximin in December, I actually improved and my SIBO was almost gone, but I had a recent retest come back about a month ago and my SIBO had relapsed, and the bacteria had actually more than doubled, which is kind of confusing and frustrating because I had been on so many courses of treatments. I had invested so much time and energy into this, so to have a relapse was quite shocking. At the same time, there is I think around a 50% relapse rate in SIBO. So I just finished my 4th course of rifaximin, and I'm going to be retesting, as I said, next week again for SIBO, so I'm hoping that it's at least gone down. For anyone that has SIBO, and I know so many of the people that watched my previous video do have dysbiosis or SIBO or something of the sort, I want to take a moment to mention diet. I have had so many questions about diet. I know I mentioned in my last video I tried the low FODMAP diet. Since then, I have tried multiple different diets. For the Candida, the thing that really worked for me was I cut sugar in all forms for about a month. I cut fruit and refined sugar. I did a bit of research and I found that cutting out fruit and refined sugar seemed to be quite an effective way of getting rid of Candida quickly, along with using some medication as well. And that was so challenging for me because I am a total sugaraholic. It's literally like in my blood. Like everyone in my family is just like cakes and sweets the whole time. And to be honest, I tried that for about 6 months before I could actually do it for a longer period of time, even though a month isn't that long, but for me a month is a really long time to cut those kind of foods. I would try every single day for 6 months and then I would just break and fall, or something would have sugar in a restaurant. I didn't like wake up one day and was like, I'm not gonna have sugar for a month. Like, it's really not that easy. The low FODMAP diet didn't really work for me, mainly because at the time I started out trying different diets, my symptoms were just so high that nothing I tried worked, and that was probably the most frustrating thing of anything, is that everyone's like, are you allergic to this? Are you allergic to that? Try cutting out this, try cutting out that, and nothing honestly, from the bottom of my heart, nothing I did seemed to make any sort of difference. My symptoms were the same, my bloated was the same, nothing just seemed to be working. The other diet that I did do was the Biphasic diet. This is a diet designed by Nirala Jacobi specifically for SIBO. It's about an 6 to 8 week diet, and in the first phase of the diet, there's probably, I can't remember exactly, but I think there's around 15 foods or around that kind of number. It's a really small amount of foods that you can actually eat, and it's super specific, like don't eat more than half a cucumber. And I did stick to that diet out of pure desperation for what to do, and although it did minimize my symptoms, it also made me quite scared of trying something new that wasn't on the Biphasic diet list, and just because it was so restrictive that I ended up being on this diet for much longer than I should have, and I ended up making my symptoms worse because I was just too scared to eat a certain type of food that wasn't on this list. Nothing really changed for me until I read the book The Paleo Cure by Chris Kresser, I think his name is. I'll put a link to it below. He basically goes into these pillars of health and how everything is related to your health, your stress, your lifestyle, and I totally believe that from the bottom of my heart. I know that when I'm stressed, my stomach balloons like nothing else within the matter of a day, and I haven't eaten or done anything different. But he basically goes into saying how sugar, gluten, and industrial seed oils really affect certain bodies, and I feel like my body over the past 6 to 8 months has definitely fitted into that category. It's not that I'm intolerant to sugar or I'm intolerant to gluten. It just takes a lot for my body to break down. I honestly really encourage you to read the book. It made so much sense to me out of any research that I have read, and it's a diet that I try and stick to 80% of the time. Obviously, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you know that I am such a sweet tooth person, so it's not every day like it was before that I'm eating sugary things. And when I look back at my diet and I read my food diaries from last January, I would have a dairy milk bar for breakfast, I'd have a croissant for lunch, crisps as a snack. My diet was absolutely appalling, and it's definitely not like that anymore. I probably have sweet treats and things like that about 20% of the time, whereas before it was just probably like around 98% of the time. I'm trying to make this video as informative as I possibly can without just like ranting and offloading my issues onto you. So I've come up with a few pointers that I would give advice to myself if I discovered this video at the same time as I had discovered I had SIBO, IBS, dysbiosis, Candida. My number one thing would be there is something called the SIBO Symposium. I'm not actually sure what the full name of it is, but again, I'll leave information below. It is basically a whole conference around SIBO, and this was the big problem for me, was that I couldn't get my head around what doctors were telling me. People would just say I'm ill. A lot of people said I was just basically making it up in my head, and it's honestly quite a frustrating and confusing time when you actually don't really know what's wrong with you. On the symposium website, you can download and listen to lectures from the leading experts and researchers in SIBO. They talk about different foods, they talk about symptoms, they talk about treatments, and they just explain it. And to me, I only really got a grasp of what was actually happening inside my body when I sat down and listened to those lectures. I downloaded them all, I took a whole weekend out, and I basically just tried to really understand what was going on with my body. The one really frustrating thing for me was I'm quite an impatient person, and to be trying something like a new diet, and in a week if my symptoms haven't gone or improved, I would get really frustrated. And I would just say, if you're watching this and you're in a similar situation, please don't focus on your symptoms. I actually at one point stopped listening to music or watching anything when I was eating, and that probably made everything worse because I was just focusing more on like what was going on in my stomach, and my stomach would make a weird noise and I would freak out and be like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So I made sure to distract myself every single time that I ate when I realized that that was becoming a problem. I also got rid of my mirror in my bedroom. I don't even own a mirror in my bedroom anymore because every time I took off my clothes, it would just be this huge reminder that I was unwell basically. And I actually had a viewer comment on one of my videos saying, Amelia, you should put your pills away in a box under the sink or something and not have them out. I normally just have my pills out. And I was like, you know what, you're right. And I put them away. Anything you can to kind of not keep reinforcing the fact that you're ill. Try as hard as you can not to focus on your symptoms. If I'm honest with you, if I look at the pictures of me bloated now versus me bloated a year and a half ago, not much has changed. I mean, you can probably not even tell the pictures apart, which really breaks my heart. But a year and a half ago, my symptoms were so bad that it was really interfering with my day-to-day life. But now it doesn't get the better of me on a day-to-day basis. 2 weeks ago when I was on antibiotics, I was having really bad side effects. But for the most part, I can go about my day-to-day life even if I have like a 6-month pregnant stomach and I can't actually do up my jeans. It's honestly not easy, especially when you feel like you're really alone and no one really, it sounds so cliche to be like, no one really understands what you're going through, but that was honestly how I really felt. But if I was giving advice to someone, I would just say, please talk to someone, go to the doctor's appointment with someone. I wouldn't let anyone come to the doctors with me, not my mom, not anyone in my family, not my boyfriend, because I was so embarrassed of all my symptoms. So I ended up really bottling it up, and that never helps anyone. I really know this is a case of mind over matter, and the more I say it to myself, the more I know that. But at the same time, when you have daily reminders, that little stomach pain or the fact that you can't do up your jeans, it does make it that little bit more difficult to get my mind to the place where I want it to be. My last point I want to say is something that I wish I discovered earlier, and that is just be selfish in capital letters. The amount of times I went to a restaurant and I didn't want to upset the waiter and I knew I couldn't have the onions because they would set off my symptoms, so I ate them anyway. Or when I went to somebody's house and I didn't want them to get offended that I couldn't eat their food. Just be selfish. Tell the waiter that you don't eat whatever it is, celery. Don't be afraid to not eat someone's food. If they're actual friend, they'll understand. It did take a while for me to put my body first, and that would be the one message I would give to you, is just put yourself first and be selfish. I really hope this video has helped you if you're going through something similar. Feel less alone. I hope my advice has been helpful, and I also wanted to address all your lovely comments that I see every day still asking me how I am, and I see them all and I'm so grateful. It really touches me. I guess I will keep you updated. If you have any comments or questions or resources or anything, please leave them in the comments below for anyone. I want this to be a lovely forum where we can all just hang out and share things and talk to each other as we did in the last video. Thank you so much for watching and for your love and support as always. I'm sending you a big kiss through the screen. We got through this video without crying. Yes. So I'm gonna go and lie down now. It's kind of intense sharing yourself this much. I feel a bit awkward now. I'm gonna go. Mwah. Bye guys.